Good afternoon, everyone. This is Luke Lothamer. Welcome to our Sage Intacct user group. We're going to get started here in a minute or so. I do see some attendees still joining, so we'll get started in 1 or 2 minutes. All right, we are here at the top of the hour. We'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is Luke Lothamer, and we welcome you to our Sage Intacct user group. If anyone is having connection issues, please feel free to contact Leah Peters. Her number on the screen there, kind of hovering over it in case anybody's having any audio issues as well. So any connection issues, please contact Leah. We are offering CPE credit for today's user group. So if you would like to receive CPE credit, please email Leah at her email address there on the screen, and we ask that you just note in the subject line CPE credit. For those of you who may not be familiar with GoToWebinar, we will be accepting questions today via the chat box. So they're on my screen. Depending on time, we'll review questions as time permits. If we don't get to your question, we will follow up afterwards. We'll make sure that we answer all the questions, but do feel free to post any questions as we go through the various topics on our agenda today. All right, so our user group agenda, we're going to start off with what's new in Intacct. From there, we're going to go into AP automation, collaborate, dashboards, Martis budgeting and reporting, ADP payroll and HR, and then to round it out, VersaPay AR automation. There on the screen is our Intacct team. Many of you are familiar and have worked with some of us, if not all of us. Many of us are CPAs, and we're always welcome to or open to questions. So if you need to email any one of us, or feel free to call in to the numbers listed there at the bottom of the screen. For those of you who are not familiar with DWD Technology Group, we are a division of a CPA firm located in Northeast Indiana, Fort Wayne to be exact, established in 1939, and we have right around 65 staff. On the technology side, we are consisted of software consultants and network engineers. We've been nominated to Accounting Today's Top 100 VARs, as well as Bob Scott's Top 100 VARs. We offer a variety of solutions, not just Sage Intacct, also Sage 100, BusinessWorks, MIP Fund Accounting, Sage 50, which is also known as Peachtree, and then Sage Fixed Assets. We also have a network side, so if any of you are interested in managed IT security plans, data backup services, Microsoft Office 365, or managed IT services, we do offer those. So feel free to contact us if you're ever in need of any of those options. All right, now we're going to get into our first topic, and that's going to be what's new in Sage Intacct. As we go through our user group today, you're going to see some poll questions pop up here and there. And at this time, we're going to start off with our first poll question, and you're going to see that on your screen here shortly. All right, so I'll kind of repeat the question there. How do you find out about new release information for Intacct? 32% of you said DWD, 14% Sage Community, 27% Sage Intacct Home Screen, and 27% of you said none of the above. So the first 3 options there, I would say all great options. You can find out that information. If you were one of those that said none of the above, I'm going to show you one of the options here on my screen. So let me pull that up here. The Sage Intacct home screen, for those of you who are in attendance, no matter where you're at in the Intacct world, if you're just getting started with the implementation, if you've been on Intacct for a little while now, when you log into Intacct, depending on what your home screen may be, here on mine in this demo environment, you can find the release notes right on the smack dab in the middle. So as you can see, keep up with Sage Intacct. Be sure to read the 2023 R3 release notes. If you click on this link here, it's going to take you to those release notes in particular. But then off to the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the latest release notes over the past year or so. All right, so if you want to catch up on older releases, you can expand those and click through as you see fit. So again, that's one option, going through your Sage Intacct home screen. If you want to reach out to any one of us here at DWD, we're happy to share with you any of those new features, as well as the Sage community. If you've signed up for that and have access, you can find those same release notes out there as well. All right, we're going to continue on here, and I'm going to be in the software mostly, but if you all want to reference the slides, you can see the slides. They should have been sent to you via email. If you don't have those readily available, you can find the handouts on your GoToWebinar pane, and you can download the PDF there if you don't have it as well. So first up, we're going to show you a new feature here in Intacct, and that's going to be AP vendor approval. So if you're an organization that wants to have your users submit new vendors, but not necessarily be able to use them until they've been approved by maybe an accounting manager or a higher level individual, that is now a feature that can be enabled. To do so, you have to go out to your accounts payable module here. You'll want to go up to the setup tab. Again, this will likely have to be completed by an administrator in your Sage Intacct environment. You will have to go into the configuration here. We're going to scroll down just a little ways, and it's going to be tucked in with the other approvals within the AP module. So you're going to see bill approval, payment approval, and right in the middle now is going to be vendor approval settings. So you'll enable that, and you can also turn on email notifications if you want to be notified when a vendor has been submitted and is ready for approval. So depending on what you want turned on, you have to check one or both of those boxes there. Once those have been checked, you will still have to provide permissions to those users who will be the vendor approvers. So if you come out to, again, this would be an administrator likely within your organization, but you would come out, I'm going to go into my subscriptions here. And within the permissions for AP, after you turn on that vendor approval, you're going to have an approved vendors row. So you'll want to give them access to that list feature right there. Once that's provided, the user in particular is going to see an approved vendors option right here beneath the bold font vendors. And so they'll be able to go out there, and when vendors are submitted, they will start to see them populate out here, and no transactions can be posted to a vendor who has been submitted. The vendor will have to be posted first before anything can be posted. So that kind of gives you a warm and fuzzy feeling that nothing can happen until that vendor is approved by the designated users. One other item to note here is if you create the vendor and you are also an approver, you must have someone different actually approve the vendor. So for instance, if we go out here to my vendors listing, and we're going to go ahead and add a new vendor. Okay, let's say we're going to add Office Depot here, and we're going to submit that. You'll notice that button now says submit instead of add or post. So now if we look at our vendor listing here, these two in particular are submitted but not approved. So when I go out to, again, approve vendors, I have Amazon there because Amazon was created or modified by Tom, but I don't have Office Depot. So keep that in mind. If you're an approver, you cannot submit a vendor and approve it. It must be two separate people. So one thing to note there, if a user tries to post to a vendor that is in a submitted state, let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So we're going to go ahead and act like we're going to add an AP bill here. Now what they will see, if I type in Amazon, they'll see Amazon or Office Depot. But when they go to select it, this message with red around it, it's going to say this vendor is in the submitted state. You cannot post the transaction until the vendor is approved. Okay, so that's what the user is going to see if they try to post an AP bill to a submitted vendor. You can view the vendor if you're an approver. If there's any supporting documentation, if you need to make sure they have the right fields filled out first, you can do all of that review right there. And then once complete, we'll go ahead and say approve here. You can add optional comments if you need to, and then we'll click approve. All right, that is going to clear it from that listing. And then now when we view Amazon, it is now in an approved state and users can begin using it. So once again, I'll kind of repeat here. If you submit a vendor and try to approve that same vendor, you're not going to be able to. It will not show up in the approved vendors. So like I just added Office Depot, Tom or someone else who has approver capabilities in this demo environment will have to approve that. Same with your organization. So just keep that in mind if you decide to use the AP vendor approval. All right, moving on to our next new feature in Intacct. So that's going to be match tolerances for purchasing. So many of you, depending on your organization, may or may not have a formal purchasing, the module turned on and are using it. But for your information, this feature applies to this module in particular. If you decide to use it in the future, this could be very useful to you. I'm going to go into the configuration, kind of show you where it's set up, and then kind of explain what this feature all means. So out here, just a little ways down on the configure purchasing screen, you have a checkbox now that says enable match tolerances. All right. This feature is used, so if you're in the purchasing process or the flow, if you will, when a purchase order gets converted to a vendor invoice, maybe that vendor invoice, the unit price or the quantity is a little different than what was initially approved on the purchase order. Maybe there's shipping involved, maybe there's other items or costs that are included in the invoice that may not have been approved on the purchase order. Well, this feature allows you to continue on with the invoice as long as the tolerance doesn't exceed 5% in my example here. You can change this to whatever percent is acceptable for your organization. But this is a new feature. It wasn't currently able to be set up this way. So very useful for those organizations who want to keep the vendor invoices and the PO process moving as long as it doesn't exceed a certain percentage. So again, an administrator would have to come out here to the configure purchasing area, turn it on, this drop down here, this would say if there is an amount or percent that exceeds it, have it go to a unique GL account as opposed to maybe the expense account where everything else is booked. That way you can distinguish those amounts that exceed the threshold. If you leave it blank, it's just going to go to the same account. All right, so let's go ahead and see this in action here. We're going to go ahead and go out to a purchase order. And we're going to convert one of these to a vendor invoice. And we're going to just say, you know what, we received this invoice and it's actually $5,000 instead of $575. And we're going to click submit. Right. And then we're going to have to go out to our vendor invoice transaction. Again, with your organization, the terminology potentially could be different, but whatever point in the process you want that threshold to be implemented, you'll go out to that transaction. And now you'll notice my two at the top here, the state says exception. So those will need to be reviewed before they can be posted. So depending, the user, if they have the ability to make edits at this point, could go out and make the change to get it below the threshold. If it needs to be reviewed further or go back for approval, that would need to be taken into consideration. If it's a matter of changing it at this point, my permissions allow me to do so. I would then go out, post that, and now that's been completed. I still have another one out here to be reviewed. So I'll point out to, on the individual rows, that's where it's going to point out the exception. So this column right here, you'll need to review it. Once again, it could have a need to go back through the approval process due to the price change, depending on what your policy is. But that is a new feature within Intacct as well that was not possible previously. Next new feature in Intacct is going to be accounts receivable related. So I'm going to go out to that module, and this is related to the AR payment ID. So very specific here. Another one where you'd have to go out to the configuration, probably an administrator within your organization. On the configuration screen, I'll scroll down. There's a section where you can set up number sequencing. So many of you may have sequences set up for customers, but there's going to be one for payments now. And so as long as you set up this payment sequence, I'll go ahead and view mine. All right, my example here is I put PMT dash, and then you define the beginning number, and this just shows you what the next number in line is. You would set up this sequence on your side, and once set up, anytime you process a payment, it's going to tack on to the last number that was used. So step one would be setting up the sequence, saving it out here. And then when your users go out to receive payments, you'll notice my screen has a column payment ID now. Many of you who are familiar with AR, you're not going to see this column, or it's not going to have any values because that sequence isn't set up. But if you come out here and let's act like we're going to process a new payment against an invoice. You'll notice once I post here, that added from the last one used. Now we have 3 out here potentially. The real benefit of using this is if you were to go out to a report, in particular the receipts register. So right here, off to the right, registers, receipts. Let's go ahead and click view here. So out here, you're going to see a column right in the middle titled Payment ID. And so if you had multiple invoices tied to a particular payment, you can click on this, drill down into it, gives you details on the payment information as well as invoices. So you can see the invoices. Again, my example was one invoice, but if you had multiple to the same customer, you would see those listed out. Gives you all of that information just based on that payment ID. All right, so next up is going to be new list enhancements. You're going to see this throughout the software. I'm going to jump to the AP vendors in particular. Up here where my cursor is, turn on list beta interface. So many of you may be asking, well, what? I don't even know what that means. Intacct has created a new way to look and modify the list down below. So, a few things I would point out here. This old listing, you can't modify the column sizes. You can't really drag and drop which columns you want to see in what order. So this listing here is really fixed. You can always create a new view, which nothing's changed from that perspective in the software. Intacct has really made it a little more flexible on how you update this listing down below. So to start, you'll want to turn on that list beta interface. You're going to notice a big change here already. Now you can start moving things around, dragging and dropping any which way you want. If I double click like you would in Excel to resize a column, it resizes. Another feature here, they use text wrapping. So if you want to see the text wrapped to make more room for other columns off to the right, when you resize this, you'll notice it adjusts the rows so that you still see the full vendor name, just makes it a little bit larger. So in my perspective, it makes it a little more like Excel. And I think many of us are used to Excel being able to modify the columns in certain ways and whatnot. So I'll also show you, create a new view. You still have that ability where you'll select which columns of information you want to show. You also have this gear icon off to the right. You can click configure columns here, and then there it gives you your list of all the potential columns you could put on your listing screen. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this feature, even in the old list view, this is the default view. So if I go left to right, vendor ID, name, address, city, state, so forth, you can add so much more information to this view or create a new view. Maybe you want to see just 1099 vendors. You can filter on specific fields for that, and you can change this any which way that you want. So again, it adds a lot more complexity to this list and a lot more information. If for some reason you say, you know what, this view isn't for me, it's not what I need a little more basic, you can always turn off beta and it goes back to the way it was. So the list enhancements apply to many different areas. To name a few, you can go out to your attachments if you have access to that area. If you see your other dimension codes, locations, you also have this that you can turn on. And I think Intacct's plans are to update this for anywhere that you see a list in this fashion. So they're constantly working on it, creating new ways to make it better. So that's always a good sign there. All right. On to the next feature here, applying credits to AP bills. This one, again, I'll go back to the AP module, and if you're the one on your team who pays the AP bills, this one may apply to you. So let me do a couple things here. Let's go ahead and apply that. It's really this section right here where you see credit date range. So if, let me go ahead and show you this. If you process debit memos or adjustments within the AP module, if you're unfamiliar with this, if you receive an adjustment from a vendor, you would come out here, process the debit or credit memo, and then in my example here, I have a debit memo for $25. So this is going to add a $25 credit to this particular vendor. The key feature here is related to the dates. So keep in mind my adjustment here is October 23rd of this year related. And if we jump back to our pay bills screen, this will filter in or out those credits that apply to the date range here. So for instance, you'll notice without a date range up there, I have this credit available for this particular vendor. If I go back in time to the month of September, click apply filter, this same vendor here no longer has a credit available. So again, it must have had a high request to have that available. So they have added it. So if you have a credit date range, so you don't want to have certain credits applied until they're applicable, you can now filter those out or make sure that it's only showing it for a certain time period. Okay, so it's as easy as specifying your date range there, and then as long as you have credits available, they will appear based on what has been entered here. All right, and so that's what's new in Sage Intacct. A nice segue here. Our next topic, before we jump into it, we're going to see if there's any questions, but AP automation is also a new feature, and we're going to show you what that's all about here next. But first, we'll check to see if there are any questions.
There is one question. Someone's asking, can I still export the list layout to Excel?
Yeah, so going back to, I'll view the vendors here. If you decide to use the new list feature, you'll notice that you do still have the export options at the top right. So you're not losing any of that functionality with this new list view. You still have the same options here.
Okay, that is it for questions. And we will switch presenters to Nathan.
All right. And as Luke said, I will be talking here about AP automation. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll get started here with a poll, just to get an idea about the volume of bills you all will be using this for. So we'll see if we can get that up for you here. All right, looks like a lot of the answers coming in, a lot of you are falling in that either 0 to 250 or 251 to 500 range there. And something with AP automation, when we're looking at how much time we're going to be saving using this feature, it does scale with more volumes. Obviously, it's going to be something that every bill that you don't have to enter in, you're obviously saving time. The way it's billed, it's not really cost prohibitive for smaller companies to use, since it is billed for use. So that's something to keep in mind, is that it's something that's definitely achievable for a company of any size, but it does provide increasing benefits the more that you utilize it. All right, yeah, and it does look like the majority there falling in those first two categories. Go on to the first slide here. So this is obviously it's a new feature, as we discussed, but it's going to give you the ability to create draft bills, and this is going to come directly from a scanned invoice document. Those can be uploaded or emailed. So as you can see there at the bottom, you're seeing kind of a list of emails. These are generated by Sage when you enable the AP automation function. But that email is something there on the right that you can set up either within your own AP inbox as bills are being sent in. You can set up auto forwarding rules to automatically forward, or you can even provide this email to, say, your vendors, and they can send their bills directly to the email. They'll directly enter Sage. The coding will be applied. Once those bills are drafted, they're going to be ready for approval or payment. So if you have AP approvals in place, this isn't going to go around them by any means. They'll still go through that same process. Your workflow won't be changed. And those bills are created with that scanned invoice directly added as an attachment. So that's another time-saving factor there, is that's going to go directly into Intacct, be stored in whatever folder hierarchy you have set up, and be there for you for review. And as you can see, so with these email addresses, the email address name that's coming out is going to be directly related to your company identification and then whatever level you're sending it to. So if you have a multiple entity or multiple location company, you can send it directly to that entity or location using the code there. Just to mention some of the capabilities of the AI. So it's going to be identifying vendors from your existing records. So if there's a vendor that's not yet entered, you're going to get what we'll look into a little bit later with some of the exceptions that'll come up. But that vendor does have to be in for it to be able to obviously identify it and apply the bill to that. If not, you'll be given the option of creating that vendor. Just know that it's going to have kind of that flag there to let you know that it couldn't apply it to a existing vendor there. It's going to be extracting names, dates, addresses, and line items for your invoices. You can change between line item or bill detail options. So if you see kind of in that screenshot there, and I'll show this again a little bit later, but you'll see the option of switching between single line item that's going to take all of your items in the bill and summarize them, or you can have those items broken out. Intacct's going to be able to pull out even all the way down to memo line detail, telling you what each line item is. It's going to detect and flag duplicate bills. So it's going to see invoice numbers, but even more than that, it's going to be looking at the amounts for each line item, the vendor, and trying to identify if there are duplications happening within your system. And then the coding it's going to generate is going to learn from your actions for previous bills. So as you use it more, it's going to learn more. It's kind of like if you have personnel, the more they have training, the more bills that they process, the better they're going to be at it, the more efficient, and the less you're going to have to be worried about in review. Am I going to have to change something? It's going to learn from those changes that you make going forward. As far as your first couple times putting bills in, it kind of depends. So if you have default expense accounts tied to your vendors, it's going to know to automatically start there. If not, the first bill that you put in for a vendor is going to want you to kind of define which expense account you're looking at. But for a lot of you, if you have those default expense accounts in there, that's automatically going to be in there even on your first bill. We can kind of look at some of that here in a second. I just want to look at some of the requirements for the file types. You can see the file types there that are going to be supported. Those can be up to 20 megabytes in size. They have to be within 200 pages. I don't know that I've or anyone on our team when we were discussing this had seen anything beyond that. So for most of you, I don't believe that would ever be a concern that you would be going beyond that 200 page length per bill. You can do for the upload function up to 30 bills at a time. So you can do it in batches. With the emails, obviously that's every email is going to want to create a bill. If there's multiple attachments in an email, that is going to create multiple bills. So a bill will be created for every attachment in an email. So if a vendor sends you a list of bills, each of those and each file will be created as its own bill. And I will switch over into Intacct here. Should be seeing that. So just finding where the upload is taking place. That's going to be in your accounts payable with your bills. So just as you would come out here to enter a bill, you'll see once it's enabled, there's this new upload button here. So that's different from your import. The upload is tied to the AP automation process. I'll select that here. Your location is changeable. I think that'll default typically to the most recently used. So you can see here, it's defaulting to our first entity. You can see again, we can choose the single line item to summarize, or we can have all items with associated amounts. So we'll see each line item as its own line in the coding Intacct. You can choose to browse here. I'm going to drop a file in here so we can see this there. It also has the drag and drop function there. You can see it's 100%. It's uploaded. It's ready to be created. Now all I have to do is click this create builds here. And now if I refresh, you should see that is now in analyzing state. So while that is working, we'll look at some of these previously uploaded bills. So you can see here is one first for this ABC office supplies that I opened up, and you can view the attachments directly here side by side, so you can review. You can see here from this office supply company, we brought a printer, paper, and some miscellaneous items there. All those were pulled in. Those memos were pulled in directly. You can see there was coding. For this one, they all defaulted to office supplies. And I decided as the reviewer that I was going to change this to miscellaneous office expense. So this miscellaneous line item, I changed what was there and I posted. And you can kind of see now the system is going to be looking at that. If we go to the next one in this list here, it's office supplies 1003. We received another bill in this example, and that had printer, miscellaneous, and paper. You'll also notice here, whoever sent the invoice, they switched up the position of miscellaneous and paper before that had been on top. That doesn't cause any issues. Intacct still saw that. It recognized the miscellaneous line item, and it automatically gave it that miscellaneous office expense coding separate from the other two line items, realizing that that's how I wanted to do it. As you can see, this one is still in the draft state here, and that's how they will all come in there. So as we go forward and we look at some of the other ones that are in, it will remember those codings. So you can see again, miscellaneous has that miscellaneous office expense. So that's what we're talking about when we're saying, as you go forward, as you process more items, that's always going to be continuing to learn and growing from there. And just to review this listing here, so this will be your default view here. You can see we have this new source and import exceptions columns. Those are going to let you know if it was coming through the upload. If we process anything through that email function, it will also have the email here. And if there's exceptions, we'll see those listed here. So you can kind of see here this exception of duplicate. So if we look at this bill, we'll see this is the same as that first bill we had looked at. Intacct recognized it had the same amounts, the same bill number, and we have this function up here where we can view the original bill as a pop-up. So we can see all that. We could review the attachment. If we do that and we see this is the same attachment as that other file, we know that that is a duplicate and we do not want to be posting that. We want to be deleting that out then. And then just to review some of the import exceptions here. So there's two types. There's going to be that resolve and the duplicate that we saw there. The resolve is one that is typically going to be tied to a vendor not existing. You can also get that if there's an unreadable file, if your file is corrupted, if there's anything preventing Intacct from being able to read that. That resolve means that there's an action that's required. So either you need to upload a different bill, review that bill file, or a lot of times you need to create a vendor. If it's for a new vendor that isn't actually in Intacct yet, that would need to be created. With a duplicate, that's one that's already going to be in your system. So that bill number and information are going to be matching with an existing bill. So that's flagged, lets you review it, lets you go in here and say, I don't want this. This is a true duplicate. I don't want it. If there's something about it, possibly it wasn't a duplicate, you still have the ability, you can override, change the bill number, maybe the wrong attachment was sent, and you truly do have a new bill for this, you can still post or draft that. And then you see that new bill upload that's been applied here, entered, so that one we had originally drug in here, that is now showing up. And that is this 1007 here. So that was the one we entered right at the beginning. So you can see how quickly that is analyzing everything, viewing it and applying that. So as far as the processing here, we've just got this uploaded. It's ready to review. We can see all of our coding is in. Our line items are correct. Our total amounts are tying out. And then all we have to do to post this is hit the post. So that would prevent us from doing that. You can see we have some budget issues here. That's not a concern for us since this is a demo environment. But you can see all the time that was saved from doing it that way, as opposed to selecting add here. And we'd have to go through, we'd have to type every item. We'd have to draw our attachment in here. We'd have to know our coding and choose that every time. Whereas with this AP automation function, we're able to pull all that automatically. Everything's being remembered and learned from. So every time you make any changes, that is being looked at by the AI, and it's considering how to better serve you in the future and better do that coding. There. And another thing to mention, so when we go through the upload, as I showed with the single line item or all line items associated, just to see that in the bill. So if we look at this bill here, you can see we had those 3 line items. If we have selected a single line item, we would only see the one. We wouldn't see broken out for paper or miscellaneous there. We would only have 1 line item. So when looking at our bill here, you can see with this one, we didn't buy any more printers. Thankfully, it seems to have worked for us this last one we got. But you can see that total amount there, that would be the only line item we would see. Our coding would have to be standard then, so those 2 line items obviously would have to have the same coding. They couldn't go to different accounts if that was our choice. But that is fully up to you. And you have the same choice of that when we're looking at those emailed files. So you can choose in your configuration for the AP whether to have your emailed files come in as single line items with that summary or as individual line items. That said, were there any questions that have come in up to this point?
All right. If you have any questions, please use the chat box to submit those. We've got time right now for maybe one of them. We have received a number of them, so if you've submitted a question and we don't read it aloud, just know that we'll follow up with you after today's session. All right. So one of the questions is, when I upload a batch of invoices, how do I view only the ones with exceptions to review?
Yep, so I guess what you're referring to, so if we went in here and we uploaded, say, those 30 files that we wanted to do, we come out here, they're all finalized. We can see a few of them have maybe a resolve issue. You can actually sort here on this exceptions here. If you click that twice, that'll actually bring all of them to the top. So you'll see your resolves and your duplicates up here at the very top of this. Another thing to kind of look at here, I guess, as well, is right now you're seeing drafted, you're seeing posted, selected items, all of that. When you're viewing, say you wanted to go in and you've just done a batch and you want to see just the ones that have just come in, so the drafts, you'll actually have this separate view that's been added here of draft bills. And that's going to filter your list. So we'd only see any older draft items or these ones that have just come in that were uploaded. So now we can see if we go in here and we start going through and clearing these items, those are going to be posted and removed from this view here. So that's an easy way of going through and seeing both the exceptions there, but also clearing your list of the new items that you need to review and post.
Very good. Okay, one other quick question. We've got a couple of people asking, do you know when this update will be live and available for them to use?
So right now, AP automation is available for use. That's something that's a little bit, we'll have to get in contact with your account manager to get it enabled. So that's something that takes a little back and forth with Sage to get that set up, but it is available as of right now for any company that's live or wants to go in and even before they're live and test out.
Very good. All right. Okay. To keep us on schedule, we need to go ahead and transfer to Cassie, who's going to be talking about collaboration tools. So we will go ahead and make Cassie a presenter. And while we're doing that, we do have a number of other questions, and we'll definitely get back to those after the session today. Very good.
Okay.
We see your slides, Cassie.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Cassie, and I'm going to be going over Collaborate today. Collaborate is a powerful collaboration solution that allows employees to connect, collaborate, share files, data, and expertise. Use Collaborate to tear down communication barriers and help your company grow and succeed as a team. Communication outside of the system is reduced by directly communicating on transactions within Intacct. You can see something is not correct or missing on a transaction and make a comment or ask a question directly at someone to provide the information needed. You can see where policies and procedures can be improved and make comments or changes to reflect processes going forward. For example, items missing that should be there can be communicated on and then added to the system. Also, if you prefer to be notified by email, you can receive notifications when someone communicates with you in Intacct. That way you're not missing out on any of the communications. Next, I'm going to go over how to access the collaboration system. So this is where you would access this, the screenshot up next to your username. There's a little message icon, and that's where you would access it. I'm going to cover these items below in the Collaboration Center. I'm going to switch over to Intacct now and show you each of these different items. Okay. Here is the home page within Intacct. So from here, like I said earlier, up next to your username, you'll see the little message icon. If you click on that, you can see your notification that you have. So I can see that I asked somebody if they had a contract for a customer, and then I can go in and view all in the Collaboration Center. So this is what it's going to default when you click on that Collaboration Center. And for your feed, you can review all posts, just items you follow, or anything directed at you. So what I follow section shows updates for anything that you follow, groups, people, or transactions. So to follow people or groups, you can go into the people section, and it's going to show you people within your company. And you can press follow. And now that I'm following Harry, he'll show up on my feed on what I follow. You can also search. So if I start typing his name, then he'll show up if you're looking for a specific person. If you go to the group section, you can also follow groups. So right now, the group out there is this accounting group, and I'm a part of, and there's 3 members. You can add a new group up here where it says new group. Go with HR. You could put a description for what this group is used for here if you needed. You can also make the group public. That means everyone can see updates and join, or you can have a private group, and that means only the members can see the updates. So if I create this and it's private, I press save. It's going to create my group here, and it says private next to it. If I want to add members, I'll go into the group, and you'll have the add members option over here. And I can start typing, and it'll have add next to their name to add the member. Now he is added to the group, and he can see anything that is linked to that group. Okay, go back to the feed. The next section, to me, that's going to be post others make on your profile page, post and comments that mention you, or post you have made that have comments. So here is a post made to me. Do I have a contract for this customer from Hermione? So it's anything directed towards me. All company. It's going to be anything in the company that you have access to view. So that includes your private groups. It's going to be everything that you have access to view. If you are not included in a private group, it won't show up here for you. Or if you don't have access to a certain module, then those will not show up for you as well. It's based on your permissions. Okay. Next, you can use @mentions. When you write a post, you can type @ followed by starting with the person's name or group. This allows you to mention any person, public group, or private group you're a part of. So I'll flip over here to a customer. So here, if I wanted to say, thanks for updating the contract, I could write @ Harry, and it'll pop up his name. Let's see. Thank you, and share. So that's how you would do the @mentions. You can also use those with a group. So if I wanted to use that HR group, I just start typing it in private, and then it's one of the private groups, so it's gonna show up for anybody if in that group. That's how you can use the @mentions, and you can use those on different transactions. So over here, I have an AP bill pulled up. You can do that here, @Harry here. You can also follow transactions, and those will be in the what I follow section as well. So if you follow this, anything that's posted here related to this bill in the collaborate section down here will appear on your what I follow, and you'll get notifications for that. Next, I'm going to go over the file section. So these are any files shared within Collaborate. Right now, I'm seeing owned by me. I shared this statement of work. That was over on the customer that I was looking at earlier. So here, I updated a contract with this statement of work, and I can see it in my owned by me files here. I can see any files that have been shared with me. That would be in this section. And it auto updates whenever a file is shared. I don't have anything in here right now, but if it was, it would appear here. All files shows you everything that's attached to a collaboration feed. So that statement of work I can see here as well. Also, if any updates were needed to be made to this within that customer record over here, if this contract needed to be updated, there's a more actions button. You can follow for updates, you can upload a new version, and then you can also view the different file versions or delete the file. That's all I have on this feed section. You can also use Collaborate on dashboards, and those can be set up and used like any other dashboard component. Brad is going to go into more detail on dashboards next. But first, did we have any questions?
All right, very good, Cassie. Yes, we've got a number of questions. Because of the time limit, again, I'm going to read one of them. Again, we'll answer others offline. The one question that a couple people have asked is, do we need additional permissions to use Collaborate?
You do not need any additional permissions. Each user will receive a welcome screen upon logging into Intacct once Collaborate is set up, and that will guide them into getting started.
Okay. All right. So Brad is now going to talk to us about dashboards. So we will go ahead and make Brad the presenter.
Everybody should be seeing what's going to be my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to do a little bit of overview of dashboards, and then we will get actually into the program and start taking a look at a little bit more of the details there. Okay. So I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with dashboards, but at a high level, it's another reporting tool that's available in Sage Intacct, right? So you could write a financial report, which I'm sure many of you have done, basically reporting against a general ledger, balance sheet, income statements, those kind of things pulled from the general ledger. There are a couple of custom report writers where you can pull in what we call kind of ad hoc reports against vendor information, some bills, those kind of things, or a dashboard, which is really kind of a summary, right, of the information. And so kind of a one-stop view of the information that's important to you, right? And we have some different ways that we can set up our dashboards, okay? We can set them up by roles. So for example, you might set one up for a CFO, or maybe your controller, or any really kind of role that you might have within your organization. You can set up a dashboard, okay? And role-based dashboards are what we're going to look at when actually get into the Sage Intacct itself. You can set up a user-based dashboard. So if I wanted to have my own particular dashboard, for example, I could set that up. Or maybe Luke wants one, or Cassie, or Nathan, or Adam, or whoever it might be. We're going to have our own dashboard simply for myself with that information that is important to me, right? You can set dashboards based up on some kind of analysis, performance cards or reports, right? KPIs and an outcome-based dashboard, key performance indicators. What's important to the person who is going to be using this dashboard, okay? Or I'm going to call it industry-based, whether it be construction or maybe a project-centric type dashboard, okay? So there's multiple ways we can create these, right? One of the things that I would recommend very highly that you do when you design your dashboard, and this is true of any reporting that you're going to design out of Intacct, right? spend a little time thinking about what it is that dashboard is meant for, okay? Who's going to be using it? What's the information that's going to be important to them? We're going to get into this. There's going to be all kinds of things that you can add to a dashboard. And then obviously the more you add to it, might be good. It might be information that's important to people. But if it's not, then we're just going to have kind of a cluttered, I don't want to use, I'll say mess, but you know what I'm saying? We'll have more information that you need, okay? Determine what content you will, that you want to give the information that you want, right? Make it collaborative. So a number of people can use it. And then there's nothing wrong at all with literally taking a piece of paper out and sketching out the way that you want this dashboard to look, right? I mean, here's what you want at the top of the dashboard. We do have some options as to how many columns we can have. We can have from 1 to 3. So do you want just a 1-column dashboard? Do you want 2 columns? Do you want it divided into thirds? Okay. Do you want, again, you want this report in the upper left-hand corner of that. You want this report, or I should say performance card, in this location. How do you actually even want that to look? Do we want this to open up to where when we open it, everything fully displays, or it actually displays minimized, and then I start opening up what it is I want to see if I want to see it? So there are a number of different things to think about, but I think it'd be very helpful to you if you literally, again, take a piece of paper, just kind of draw this out where you want things to go and what you want to put on there. I think you'll find that to be very, very helpful, okay? We do have a number of components that we can put on dashboards. We have what are called performance cards. Those are what you kind of see here at the top of my sample here, where we normally are doing changes in an account group of some kind. How does that compare to a prior period? Does it go up? Did it go down? What's the percentage? What's the dollar amount? We have choices as to how we want to measure that performance, but those are options that we can typically place at the top, as I've seen on these dashboards, those performance cards. We can also, any reports that we write, we can add to that dashboard. So if you have a financial statement that you want to appear on a dashboard, we can do that. We could do that with some of the custom reports that we also write. If you want it in a chart format, we can also then take that report as a chart and add that to the dashboards. Any of the lists, records, queries can be added to the dashboard. If you are an approver, if you have approval responsibilities, whether it be for general ledger, whether it be for bills, whether it be for payments, if you're using purchasing, I know that there are approvals in purchasing. If you have approval responsibilities there, we can add those to the dashboard. So when you get into your dashboard, you can have a section where those approvals will appear, and you can go into them and approve them from the dashboard. As Cassie said, we can add, collaborate those conversations to our dashboard, and we can add links to outside URLs, websites, anything else that we want to link into the dashboard. And I'll show you most of these, or actually all of these, I think, are on the dashboards that I put together that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute. I would like to do a kind of a quick poll question here, as we've done in some of the other sections that we've done. And I know that this particular poll question is going to ask you what it is would be most important to you to see on a dashboard, given the components that we have to add. So if you can take the 30 seconds or whatever we've been using here to
All right, we are going to close it, and we'll share everyone's responses. There you go, Brad.
All right. Looks like we had reports, charts, and graphs as the winner there at 54%. Then with lists, records, queries, performance cards, pretty close there. Well, actually, we've got links and feeds. Looks like the approvals kind of bringing up the rear there, not as important for everybody. But we'll see all of these on the dashboards that I have going to look at when we get into the Intacct. Okay. Thank you very much for answering that poll. And I've got one more slide here. One of the things sometimes in any kind of reporting that we do, that anybody does, certainly there have been some permissions that have been set up behind the scenes, right? So, you know, can a person get into general ledger? I mean, that's typically one where we have some permissions set up, right? AP, AR, again, any and all of these modules can have permissions. And so we don't want to kind of make an end run around those permissions with the reporting that we do, right? So just to let you know at a high level here, we do have three different areas where we can set up permissions, right? So at the company level, can the person either create dashboards or not, or are we just going to allow them to view the dashboard? So we will set those up again as an administrator, somebody who has those rights, and then we'll only allow particular users to see that information. Or are we going to give our users, particular users, the ability to actually edit, view, or change components, okay? Then we can drop down a level into the specific dashboard, okay? There's a dashboard permissions tab. We could set that up to say these users have rights to this dashboard. These are the users who can see this dashboard. Or this is the role who can see this dashboard, right? And so just FYI, you can see my second bullet points there. User rights do take priority over a group. So if you've given access to a group and a user is not in that group, but you also give access to that user, then those user rights will take priority over the group. And then for groups, if you allow a group, that'll take priority over deny, okay? And then finally, in the dashboard components themselves, if that record or that report requires permission to view, okay, if they're not allowed, if they're not have permission to see that report, or if they're not allowed to view vendors, for example, in the permissions you set up, then the dashboard will honor that, and the user will see an area or an error, or a blank area where those components should be. Okay, so we do have security on our dashboards. Okay, so here is my CEO dashboard. What I've done here is we've set up a group of role-based dashboards. Okay, and so up here at the top, I have what we call our performance cards. And so you can see that revenue is up this month versus the prior month. Okay, number of clients. We can also report against statistical accounts. Anybody who's using statistical accounts, we can do reporting against that. If we go into these, we'll notice that I have the ability to edit the component. And I'll go into this client, for example, to show you my performance cards here. Okay, we are actually reporting against an account group. So for those of you who have worked with account groups, you know that those are groups settings that are point to particular accounts. Okay, so in this particular case, we have an account group called clients served, and that's actually pulling from a statistical account where each week we enter the number of clients that we've served, and that's going to report against that. You'll notice that a couple of them here, I have amounts. So this is a dollar amount. That's the number of clients. We can also set this up to do it as a percentage. Okay, if I want to see that as a percentage as opposed to a dollar amount, I can do that. If I scroll down here a little bit, here's an example of a report that I've added to my dashboard. So this is my my revenue and expenditures by department. There are my departments. And then if I scroll down here, I've got a scroll bar that allows me then to see the entire report. Okay. Here's what I was talking about earlier. I set this up to actually, when this opens, it opens these up in what's called minimized. Okay. And so if I want to actually see then this particular piece of information, I would click on the down arrow to drill into it. And the same is true here in all of my reports that I have on here. You'll notice I have my blue hyperlink. And so from this dashboard, I can drill directly back down into the supporting documentation behind that particular line. I can also, from here, this is a report. I can actually click on my pencil here, and I can actually drill back into that report if I want to and make changes to it. Okay. I can do some simple things here. You'll notice it turns into if I want to move things up or down here, I can simply do that. Grab the mouse. Okay. I have some links that I've added here. Again, let me go real quickly here through just adding. I'm going to add a real quick component here. I've got my dashboard. If I go up here into the upper right, add a component. I'm going to do one that especially like a controller might want to see. I'm going to add a general component, and I've got what's called a closed through summary. Okay. And if I save that, it's now going to add on here my modules, and it's going to tell me what modules have been closed and what they've been closed through. Okay. I've got a controller dashboard. I click on that. You'll notice, obviously, this one is different. I've got some charts on here. I got my expenses by category. I can flip between a chart view and the data view if I want to actually see the data as the numbers. Okay. Again, I've got a number of these that are opening. Looks like that's trying to go to a link that no longer exists. Let me go back to my CFO here. Just I've got a couple other things to show here, keeping track of my time here. Again, if I want to put some links to some outside websites here, this take me to the DWD Technology, for example, if that's one I'm going to often. And in here, as Cassie was talking about, I added one of the Collaborate conversations to my dashboard, and it's right here. Okay. I'm not approver. I am not an approver as I'm logged in here in this particular demo company. But you'll notice that I do have some sections on here that if I was an approver, I would see that information down here would allow me to drill into that particular whatever it was to approve. In this case, payments. I could approve them directly from my dashboard. Okay. Other thing I do want to show you here, and then I'll open it up to see if we have any questions. If you go into, let's say you get a dashboard set up or somebody sets up that dashboard for you, you do have the ability to go into My Preferences. And if you scroll down, I believe it's somewhere kind of near the bottom here, you can have your default be a dashboard. There's a way to, in here, in your preferences, to display your dashboard as your start page. Okay, so if every time you log into Sage Intacct, you want to see your dashboard as a start page, you can do that. You can also do that with a particular module as well. Okay. And I'm not going to, there it is, my start page. I could make that the dashboard, and I'm going to make that the CFO dashboard. And so now whenever I log into Sage Intacct, that's the first thing I'm going to see when I log in. Okay. That was a pretty quick run through there. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you can do with a dashboard. I'll go back and put my CFO back up here again. Actually, if I went to my home screen, it would take me to that now, since that's my home. And see, we have a couple minutes here for any questions.
All right. Excuse me. We do have a number of questions. I'm going to go ahead and read just two of them. The first one is there a limit on the number of dashboards I can create?
No. As far as I know, there is no limit on the number of dashboards. I would say it's probably your imagination.
Okay. This question, I think you might have just gone over it, but can I make the dashboard my default start page?
Yes. Yeah. That was the last item there in the My Preferences. If you want to, again, set up a dashboard and then go into My Preferences, there is a default start page, and dashboards is one of the options that you can make, or select, I should say.
All right. Okay, well, we are going to transition back to Luke. He's going to wrap things up here for everyone. So, Luke, I'm going to make you the presenter. And just a reminder, if you have any questions about any of the sections that have been covered today, go ahead and submit them via chat, and one of our team members will reach out and answer those for you.
All right, so a couple of final items here as we round out our user group. If you would like to receive CPE credit, just like I showed at the very front end here, please email Leah at her email address and just note in the subject line that you would like to receive CPE credits. You might mark your calendars here. We will have a Sage Intacct year-end webinar on Thursday, December 14th from 1 to 2 p.m. We'll be covering how to process 1099s as we get near the end of the year and you're looking to process those through Intacct. So mark your calendars there for that webinar in particular. As you all log off today, whether that's here after this or once we get through, if you stay for the marketplace partners, their presentations, when you log off, there will be a survey, and if you are able to take that, it really just takes about 2 minutes of your time. One individual will be selected to receive a $25 Amazon gift card there. I mean, who doesn't like an Amazon gift card? So again, it's just 2 minutes of your time, and it provides us with very valuable feedback. I'll display all 6 of us here on the Sage Intacct team. If you ever have any questions, any of the items we kind of showed here on the user group, maybe new features that you're not aware of or have set up appropriately. So feel free to reach out to any one of us via email or give us a call, and we're always happy to help. Again, we will be reaching out, like Sherry said, any questions that were unanswered. We'll be following up on those shortly. And then as a final slide, we're going to take a break here until 2:45. After that, at 2:45, we'll start with Martis. They are a Sage Intacct marketplace partner, along with ADP and VersaPay following those. So again, we thank you for attending today. And if you wish, stay on to see Martis, ADP, and VersaPay. Thank you all.
right, looks like we're right at about 2:45. So for those of you that can hear my voice, you might recognize it. My name is Adam Westcurtis with DWD Technology Group. And thank you again so much for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending upon where you're located, for our user group session here, and had good content in the first half. And we're kind of transitioning in the break to kind of highlight some plug and play solutions that work very well with Intacct that our customers are currently using. All three are marketplace partners and are totally cloud-based, which is very important to our organization and customers that we work with. They have direct integrations with Sage Intacct and have deep vertical experience, but more importantly, all of these solutions are ones that we here at DWD have personal experience with. And not only do they have great software applications, they also have great support and response times, and working directly with each of them. So if any of these that we're talking through this afternoon have interest, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself or to Luke or Nathan, Cassie, Brad, or one of the other consultants. We can happily provide more information. So without further ado, let me just give a quick introduction for the Martis team that's joined us this afternoon. We'll be starting with Martis Budgeting, and their solution is a great fit for organizations that have outgrown and really got tired of Excel-based budgeting. They take a very practical approach for bottom-up budgeting, and which a lot of our customers are looking for. I personally really like the balance between ease of use and sophistication when it comes to financial planning tool, and it's really a scalable solution that can be made available even to non-accounting folks. So with that kind of introduction, Chris and Vanessa, I'd like to turn it over to you, and I think we're going to start with Chris here. So thank you so much for both of you joining us.
Thank you, Adam. And I think it's important to say we're really grateful to DWD Technology Group for allowing us to be visible to its customer base. This is almost a 2-year-old partnership, of which it's been especially prosperous. And we credit our partners with much of our visibility and helping us really help a host of different kinds of nonprofits and for-profits solve their budgeting and reporting challenges. So thanks again to DWD. I really don't have a whole lot left to say given that marvelous introduction by Adam, but nevertheless, I will go through a handful of slides for y'all because there are a handful of points that I think are important to make in the context of you being Sage Intacct users. So we are 15 years old. We have around 640 customers. Vanessa may be able to correct me on that. And I believe that about 475.
49, I think now.
Okay. 475 or so are on Sage Intacct. We have an exceptional depth of knowledge when it comes to the product. We have folks in our organization that have either consulted, implemented, sold Sage Intacct, so we have an especially familiar relationship with Sage Intacct and done hundreds of implementations in that regard. In terms of markets served, nonprofits, churches, and for-profits in that order. Largely, we're serving nonprofits, but I think it's important to mention in the context of what Adam said, we are sort of a bottoms-up solution, nevertheless, with some top-down capability as well. But we serve nonprofits largely because of customer word of mouth and the visibility that we've been given by our partners. We never really defined ourselves as nonprofit specific. It just turned out that way because a lot of folks enjoyed using our solution to solve their problems and told a lot of their friends and colleagues. So we can work with churches and for-profits as well, assuming there is either a collaborative participatory budgeting is in place or the organization has moved in that particular direction. You all know about the API, bidirectional integration with Intacct. Existing budgets, income, and expenses can move from Intacct into Martis and vice versa. There is an overnight sync and an on-demand sync is available to users as well with a single click. We integrate seamlessly, no data translations or shadow accounts. Our key differentiator for us is a very rapid implementation process, ready to use immediately out of the box with automated and on-demand updates. Vanessa, I'm sure, will take the opportunity to show you how you can limit user access by function, dimension, and more. And if you are using statistical accounts in the context of Intacct, those can be used as drivers in Martis. And last but not least, although DWD would be providing tier 1 support in terms of Martis use, we have an unrivaled knowledge base that's always sort of expanding given the content that Vanessa is adding on a regular basis. with monthly releases of new functionality and webinars. We really believe that you should be able to learn at your own pace, as well as sort of speak into the product and what it's sort of evolving over the course of time. So that is what I have to share. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and at this time turn things over to Vanessa Chambers, who is our Director of Service Delivery and Product Management.
So I'm Vanessa Chambers. I'm the Manager of Service Delivery and Product Management teams here at Martis. And I am going to take the next 20 minutes or so to give you a brief introduction to Martis functionality. And let's try to save just a tad bit of time at the end of this half hour for taking questions, if you have some. So I'm starting out here at the very welcome page for Martis. You'll notice that we make things convenient for you from the very get-go by giving you a list of saved reports that you could just do one click to get to. Martis itself, as you might guess from the fact that we've used the words budgets and reports both, is a where'd my screen go? Sorry about that. Coming from the welcome screen, Martis is a combination, is a multi-pronged tool. It has a reporting component as well as a budgeting component. And then as you look over here to the menu, you'll see a very important piece of the budgeting component is our personnel budgeting. I'm going to start by taking a quick look at our reports. Now, all of these reports that you look at here, these are standard, out of the box, available at the immediately after kickoff. Chris alluded to our very rapid implementation. Typical implementation just takes within the realm of a couple of weeks to get people trained, and the actual transfer of data from Sage Intacct to Martis so that you can use Martis immediately takes typically less than an hour. So inside our dashboard financials, on this select report menu, you can get a list or get an idea of what standard reports come with Martis right out of the box. I'm going to use the income statement as a way of showing you what kind of data we have and how we make it easy for people to get to. Now, in my demo environment, we have just a couple of dimensions configured. I'm using entity, which is both entity and location in Sage Intacct. Department and project is called Project Grant here. We support, in any given Martis implementation, you can have up to 8 dimensions configured. We support all of the normal Sage Intacct dimensions, plus, of course, we also support UDDs. The configuration itself is determined at the time of kickoff, so the DWD consultant essentially works with the Martis support to decide what exactly is going to be configured for a given setting. Now, access to the data within here is controlled super granularly, so we're not limited to the kinds of dimensional limitations that one can set up in Sage Intacct. Within Martis, whatever dimensions you have configured, those can be used to determine a user's access. So they don't get less functionality, they don't get fewer reports, but what they get, they would see different things on their drop-downs, shorter drop-downs list. Of course, I'm an admin user for the purpose of this demo, but they would have a shorter list of dimensions available to them, and the data that they see on their reports would be limited as well. But they can be limited by any and all dimensions that are configured within Martis. Looking at this income statement here, what you see, of course, is activity by GL account down the side and by months across the top. And want to show you how flexible and changeable and pivotable these reports are very easily. So it's in account view right now. I can show it by any of these dimensions that are defined in Martis, so that you could, for example, ask to see it by department view summary. Now we have our departments down the side. We can put our columns to be anything in time frame, months, current month and year to date, quarters, years. We can also put our dimensions across the top if you wish to see your report in that fashion. Let me go back to the account view and illustrate some of the drill down capabilities. As you see, we can split between these reports very quickly. because of our nightly sync with Sage Intacct. So this data here is gathered each night, but should you ever want to, let's say, drill down and see the detail behind that data, just click on the blue amounts, and it goes out to Intacct, and it brings up a list of the specific transactions that made up that total. And furthermore, you can even click on the paper clips and drill down to the actual attachment. Now, we can show you attachments that actually live within Intacct, or if you're using an integration to something like Bill.com, or for credit cards, Divvy, or Concur, or Beanworks, or any of a number of different other third parties out there, that in some of those cases, those attachments don't actually live within Intacct, but with the click, we link you out to Bill.com, so that your end users of Martis can be the program managers, department heads, people who normally maybe either would not have access to the accounting system, or if they did have access to the accounting system, might have to have special dashboards built for themselves. They might be a little bit not being accountants, not being financial people, not really be in a great position to take full advantage of the capabilities of the accounting system, which of course are very great, but Martis brings it down to a level that they can easily use. I'm going to show one other report, just briefly, two other reports that we have here. This forecast report is one that, again, non-financial users find as an easy way to be able to see where they are with regard to budget, actuals through the last closed month, budget for the rest of the year. How does that compare to what they had originally projected in terms of budget? And what variance are they looking at this particular point? So that quick and easy forecast can give them a peek into the future. We have another report here, we call it our multi-year budget to actuals, that is particularly useful for those of you who have grants and that type of activity that extend across fiscal years. So if I were, for example, to pick a particular grant, look to see it across all years, I'll get a summary by GL account across all the years in which that grant has been used, with a total on the far right. Again, it's by account because my rows are set to account view. I can change that to any other way I wish to see it, perhaps by account category. So I could see my program costs versus my grant income or something like that. And then I could also drill down on any of these items, so I can see specifically what happened in individual months, and I can drill even further than that. Just as we drill down into the transactions, we can go all the way to the individual transaction level and attachment information for the items that are on these screens. We have also, there's a report builder function here, and I'm not going to go into it because our time does not permit today, but just to let you know that we have a custom report builder capability. We provide a whole bunch of templates as part of this. And you can use these templates as the basis of your custom reports within Martis, or you can simply design your own from the very get-go. And it's going to come up for us in a sec. There we go. You can see from from my settings here that I can use any of these kinds of data sources, or I should say any or all of these data sources. I have seen people pick 12 and 15 different data sources to put on these custom reports to compare at any level you wish to compare, by account or by your dimensions or by account categories. Filter in certain kinds of ways, control the ways in which it is totaled, and build out a report that can contain precisely what you want to see. These reports, like our standard reports, can be saved, can be shared amongst other users if you wish to. Another couple of comments to make about these is that you can put notes on individual lines on these reports. They are changeable on an ad hoc basis, so somebody can come in here and say, well, now I want to see it by department, not by GL account, or something like that. And that report has been a very successful addition to our standard reporting capability. In budgeting, I'm going to go to the planner section of Martis for that. And I'm going to start with our planner summary. This is a look at the budget. Now, of course, in Martis, you can have multiple budgets. You can have a version 1. You can save that one as archive that one and create another one. That'll be your version 2. Maybe you'll get eventually to a point where you've got an approved budget for the year. Then you may wish to reforecast. And most of our customers typically will do that by creating yet another copy of the budget and reforecasting, perhaps loading actuals to date into that and reforecasting from there. With Martis, the budget is based on what we call worksheets, and this list of worksheets, as you can see, kind of indicates that my worksheets themselves are based on a combination of entity and department. And each of these worksheets can have a target. That target could be based on the prior year's activity. It could be simply a number that is assigned because it's a top-down driven target that says you need to hit a certain level of expenditure or income. Budgets also have owners and approvers. So we have a workflow built into Martis so that as an owner works on their worksheet, when they finish it, they submit it. It's locked automatically. It's going to be the approvers are going to be notified, and the approvers, well, I got one down here that is denied, as you can see, one that's waiting for approval. And I'll mention too, this locked column, every worksheet can be locked when it's submitted for approval. It is going to be locked always at that point, but it'll be unlocked and open for being worked on during the course of normal activity. I am going to go into budget worksheet here and make my screen just a little bit wider so you can see I have my budgeted income, my budgeted expense, each line here by GL account. In this sample database, you can see that for each GL account, we also define activity at the project or project level as well. So that's embedded within the worksheet to be able to budget by dimension within the GL account, essentially. We have tools in our budget worksheet to make it easy to, I'm going to clear this guy out. Oops, sorry about that. Clear this guy out to start with here so that I can show you what we can do with our budget widget here. So if a line is empty, or if we have used our line actions to add a new line, we might use our budget widget to take a cost. Maybe it's a monthly cost and we're going to spread it across the entire year. Or maybe it's an annual cost and we're just going to put it out there and have it calculate the average for each month. We can put notes on this and we can change any of these numbers. So we could put a special note here and to indicate why it was we feel like we need to spend more money in this particular month. And whenever we save that, that becomes that budget line. I can just key in the budget line. If I want to make changes like this, I can do it like that too. So you're somebody who can get around in Excel but isn't real comfortable with other tools or with other more complicated modeling can simply put numbers in like that, and they can put notes in to indicate what's going on individual budget lines. We have many other ways to manage budget lines though, and I'm going to show you that briefly with what we call here a special purpose worksheet. And this is the kind of thing you would do in order to layer in detail behind your budget line. Maybe your total is going to be $10,000 in a month, but that's made up of a lot of different components. You create your own sections within this special purpose worksheet. And I've got a section here named Claremont Project because we've got some special software that is associated with this particular project. Those costs are going to be related to that project, and that's where we're going to expect the expenses to be booked as well. I have a section here for miscellaneous software. So I've got my Intacct and my Martis, and I've got some expense tracking software. And you see I've got different amounts in different months. All of this is going to get summarized down here at the bottom. So when I click this little orange button at the bottom, when I post to the worksheet, it's what's here at the bottom that's going to get written out to the worksheet itself. So this is a little bit of a way of doing detail within my dues and subscriptions line, but I have an example here of how we can use Martis to build up things that are more complex. So here's an example of where I'm going to say that I am paying $14 a month for Microsoft Office. I've got this many users, and so this is what my total cost is going to be. So I added 2 lines here that are essentially non-financial lines. And on this last line, I've said, well, this is going to be a formula. I can use any of the lines on this special purpose worksheet in this formula. I can use these kinds of operators, addition and subtraction and multiplication and division and logical things like ifs, thens, minimums, maximums, equal to, not equal to, etc. I made a very simple formula just for example here, rate times users, and that is how it's going to determine what is going to hit that GL account and hit that particular project. If I do something like change an element that supports this line, maybe change my number of users in February from 5 to 50, you'll see that number change, that total change, and the bottom change, the bottom line changes as well, so that when I do post it to the worksheet, that's what's going to get out there. This kind of formula building is this very simple example here, but only for demonstration purposes. It can get really complex. You can use inside of these formulas, you can use totals of other items in Martis. So it could be a revenue total from a particular line or something like that that pushes in here. Could be statistical values. As Chris mentioned, we support statistical accounts in Intacct. You budget for them just like you budget for your dollars. And then you can turn around and use those budgeted numbers as drivers in formulas like this. We have another layer of this kind of worksheet that we call the global special purpose worksheets. So this kind of thing, and here it's an example where I've got my square footage and my gross utility costs, and I'm allocating a certain percentage to each department. This one, when I post it, it's going to post to several worksheets because it's going to post the utility costs to the youth center worksheet and the food service worksheet and the accounting department worksheet. And you can see when I come back to my accounting department worksheet that if I try to click, try to do anything in my utilities line, I can't do it because that's being controlled centrally by that global special purpose worksheet. And a lot of our customers will, management at some level will push some of those kinds of indirect and overhead costs into various other programs and departments using this technique. Okay, so that's just a little look at budgeting in Martis. As I said, you can have many budgets and reforecast as you need to throughout the year. Personnel budgeting is a very important component of that for a lot of our customers. Personnel costs, salaries are one of our biggest expenses. You can have many scenarios, just like you can have many budgets. And the scenarios are position-based. So in my scenario, I have many positions. They can be associated with employees or maybe not, because maybe it's a new position. Maybe it's going to start in a certain date. These actually start at the beginning of the year, but you could start somebody in the middle of the year. Positions could end in the middle of the year. The key to personnel budgeting in Martis is our pay types, which they can be very sophisticated. They can be percentage-based, they can be salary, hourly, they can be tiered. So something like health insurance can be related to the level of coverage that's assigned on a given employee. So if one employee has chosen employee-only coverage, then that's going to be the rate. If they've chosen the family coverage, then that will be the rate that is applied to them. The goal with that being largely to ensure that when I go to actually define how the total compensation for somebody, that to the greatest possible extent, it can be default driven and doesn't have to be necessarily specific. You'll notice too on this position that there is a home department, as we call it. Of course, it just depends on whatever dimensions that worksheet that this person's compensation is going to end up on once you take from the scenario and post into your actual budget. But these people, and when within Martis, it's easy to change rates. For example, I've drilled down on this particular person. I could make an update that says, oh, let's say in June, we are going to give a 5% increase to this person. And you'll notice over here in my June numbers jump up. And all the things, all the costs associated with that, because the retirement match is based on the salary and the payroll taxes are based on the salary and so forth, they all increase at the same similar sort of way. Now I did this here to just one person and one salary, but I could use my filters here and maybe pick out all of my health insurance and increase it all in the middle of the year when your benefit year rolls over and you know that you're going to need to be planning for additional health insurance costs during that year. Once we have completed our budgeting process, then we look at the summary option here and we simply post it to our budget, our regular budget, with just one click. So it's easy to move what you've done here in personnel budgeting into your main budget. One last thing about personnel budgeting is our sophisticated allocations process. So I'm going to indicate an allocation by hours here as an example in my demo. So for this person, what we've said here is that we're going to take some portion of her compensation and we're going to allocate it to other projects, in this case, to the Holcomb grant. And I started here with the idea that she was going to be doing 69 hours a month on that. But then I changed it in some individual months. And if I want to add another target here, I might say, well, we're going to put this on the, we're going to put it in the fundraising department, and it's going to be to, let's choose the outreach campaign, and we're going to figure that she's going to spend 15 hours a month on the average for this particular allocation. And if I were then to look at it and say, well, that's true, but in July is when we have a gala, so we're going to have to spend 30 hours on that one. So it's that easy to make changes to those kinds of allocations. And I simply apply that allocation to my personnel summary before I actually post it to the budget in order to make sure that my compensation costs hit the right departments. Okay, that leaves me with about 3 minutes to spare before the end of the session. So I'm going to stop now, and if we have questions to answer, I will try to answer them as fast as possible.
For the attendees, if you have any questions related to the presentation that was just shown, please go ahead and submit that via chat, and we'll read them aloud for everyone. We've got a couple minutes left here.
While we're waiting on that, I'll show you one other thing too in Martis. I talked about using a budget to reforecast, but we have another forecasting module that lets you do forecasts at a slightly higher level too. So we have multiple kinds. We have multi-year projections, and we have what if. Oh dear, now I'm going to change myself again. There we go. So I created here a multi-year a 5-year projection that is at the level of entity, department, and account category. So I base it on a budget. So starting with my 23 budget, I had it goes out into the future years. I can take any single items or all my income or specific expense items, and just a moment while I move my, there we go, get my webinar thing out of the way. I can take an item here and I can say, well, I think in this year we're going to be having a change of, let's say we're going to drop it by 20% because we're not going to do so much traveling in that year. And apply that there. And as you can see, reading across here, my conferences cost is different now in 25 than it was in 24. And because this is a multi-year analysis, it carries forwards.
Okay, we do have a couple questions now. The first one is, can you create a spreadsheet based on history? For example, trending for cyclical business.
Absolutely. So you can, I'm going to go back. I'll use that same accounting worksheet, but you can look at the reference data for a given period of time. And in this case, it's structured so that it could be my 22 actuals plus budget, or it could be my 12-month trailing actuals. And I can use that reference data, and I can initialize my entire worksheet that way if I wish to do that. Or I can simply use I can do that to individual lines. So I could pick certain of the lines. I don't have anything picked right at the moment, but I could pick certain of the lines on here that might be especially cyclical, and use my line actions to initialize those based on some other set of numbers. So that you can use history, you could use actuals or budget or trailing, trailing actuals as well as the source of that.
Okay. There's maybe 4 or 5 other questions, but we're at our time limit right now. We'll go ahead, for anybody else that submitted a question, we'll go ahead and answer those offline. We'll make sure everyone gets responded to with anything that they have asked. But right now, we'll need to transition to the next presenter to stay on our timeline. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you guys, and thank you for the opportunity. And go ahead and pass the questions to us, and we will be glad to answer them.
For the attendees, keep entering. If you have more questions related to Martis' solution, continue to enter those in chat, and we'll respond later on this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Christy.
Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Hey.
Thanks, everyone, for, again, going through that portion of the presentation. Martis is a very strong budgeting solution that we've worked with a number of organizations. So they have a really strong integration with Sage Intacct, as you saw. So appreciate Vanessa's time there. The next solution we will be highlighting is Sage's payroll module. And under the hood, it is powered by ADP's world-class software and really their compliance system. So this is ideal for those of you that are looking to integrate a payroll and timesheet solution directly with Sage's Dimensions, payroll ledger, and really statistical accounts. If you want to bring in hours worked in different areas, you're going to be able to do that. And it's an all-encompassing human capital management system, offers everything from basic payroll, human resources, to benefit management, to advanced timesheets, to compliance. And within 30 minutes here this afternoon, there's not going to be enough time to cover everything. This is just a real high-level overview. But lastly, but not least, this particular solution is truly a Sage module that can become part of your Intacct subscription. And there's a dedicated team for getting customers set up and going. If you're already using the ADP solution, know that there is a connector that's available if you're already on the platform. And so some of you may have already been using that as well. So kind of with that introduction, I'd like to turn the floor over to Christy, the account executive, and Michael, the solution expert. So I did see the screen show up there, and Christy, if you're going first, it looks like we see you on. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and thanks for the intro, Adam. Really appreciate it, and very excited to be here with you guys this afternoon. So we appreciate the time. Yeah, so Michael, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to keep it nice and short and sweet for you guys. And to Adam's point, we're just going to go through, introductions. Michael and I will introduce ourselves really quick, and then we're going to talk through, what is Sage Intacct Payroll and kind of how did it come to be, and of course the integration points that would come included with that you could expect. And then we're going to showcase what it actually looks like from the user perspective. And then of course, at the end, we will hope to have some time for questions. So just put them through in the chat as we're going, just for the sake of time, and then we will pause at the end and go through each question. So my name is Christy Rodriguez. I have been with ADP for actually almost 7 years now, so I need to edit that, but I have been in payroll and HR and a time and attendance for all 7 years. So that's what I've been specializing in, is helping companies, with 50 or more employees to decide which solutions are the best fit for them from a payroll, HR, and time perspective. Now, what I work on is working with my partners to ensure that their clients really find the best fit for their company from an integration standpoint into those payroll and HR services. So do you want to introduce yourself, Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Sedano, and I've been with ADP for a little over 7 years now. And I specialize in talking to our clients and prospects and partners about the ADP technology, Sage Intacct Payroll powered by ADP, as well as any other platforms that ADP supports. So excited to be here today, and thank you to the team for having us.
Awesome. And you can go to the next slide. Okay. So what is Sage Intacct Payroll, right? That's probably what everyone is wondering here. So really just like a little bit of background on the situation is that Sage over the years realized that there was a little bit of a functionality gap when it came to payroll and HR. So a lot of their clients kept, asking them and pinging them, do you have a payroll solution that comes included with Sage that can integrate our payroll and time in with our accounting? And for a really long time, Sage felt that they were kind of losing business because the answer to that question had been no. So what they did, they listened to their clients, right? And they went out and they did their due diligence by vetting out and interviewing 15 different HCM payroll companies. The big ones would be like Paychex and Paycor and Paylocity, to name a few that you probably all have heard before being in business. And they ended up picking ADP out of those 15 different companies, which we felt was a really big deal, and we were really proud of that. And the reason that they picked ADP is going to be what you're going to see today. And it's really the fact that we started the game, right? Like, we've been in business for over 70 years, and we were the first payroll company that ever came to be, and we're the biggest payroll company in the world now. So there's really nothing that we can't handle from a payroll, time, and HR perspective. And just before I go to the next slide, I wanted to just put a little disclaimer that you'll see down there at the bottom in yellow. If you are already an ADP client today, just know that the integrations that you'll see are also available to you as well if you would like them. All right, next slide, please. Okay. So I'm going to have Michael take this one, and these are for current or non-current ADP clients, and these are the 5 levels of integration that you could expect. So Michael, I'll just have you dive through these.
Thanks, Christy. So on the screen here, we can see the different ways that ADP technology or Sage Intacct Payroll is communicating with Sage Intacct, or the financial side of the business. The first point and the first workflow is the general ledger data. So post-payroll processing, we're able to send your journal entries, the way that we may have allocated labor or grants to different projects. We're able to send all of that over to the general ledger side on Sage Intacct. The next data point is the employee data or people data movement. So as we're entering new hires, or we're terminating employees, or even updating an employee's profile, they change departments, the API here is doing 200 calls per minute. So sub-second, we're taking that information and transferring it to Sage Intacct. So the employee record will be the same. Next, we have our expense reimbursement. The expense originates in Sage Intacct. We enter in the information. We then send to the payroll engine for payout. And then we're bringing that information back into Sage Intacct on that general ledger file as paid. The next few integrations all fall under our time and attendance. So we can push time into the payroll engine. We can take that from Sage Time and Expense. we can also send time information from the payroll engine over to Sage Time and Expense. So either way, we would just need to know which would be the system of record. In addition to that, we also can move those dimensions. So we can take those projects, grants, the information that we're entering in Sage Intacct, and send it to the payroll engine's time card so that your employees can allocate time accordingly.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, just as a reminder, so all 5 of those connection points are available for purchase if you're a current ADP client, and then if you're would be new to ADP moving forward with Sage Intacct Payroll, then they all come included with whatever you end up getting. And these are really, I like to call this kind of the employee life cycle, if you will. So these are sort of all of the areas that we could impact or help an organization. And all of these options are available to current ADP clients if you don't already have them, or to future clients through the Sage package as well. So we can help you with finding your talent, right? A big part of the business is finding the people that run it. So all the way from recruiting them and going out and building a career site and integrating that in with your payroll, bringing them into the organization. A lot of the clients that I've helped DWD's clients with have been around onboarding. So that's kind of a big one. A lot of people are used to like a paper experience. So we can make that electronic where, new hires could actually apply and onboard themselves right from their phone or their computer before their day one to really improve that experience. And that really helps with retention. So that's another way that we're able to help too, is throughout their time working at the organization, are you doing performance reviews and check-ins and surveys and things like that to help keep your employees engaged? So we can certainly help with that as well. And then payroll and tax filing, I think everybody kind of knows that we can help with those areas as well. Time and attendance. So, back in the day, it was the paper time clock that you would go in and punch your clock. But things are different now, and people are either doing, like a POS type of system or a kiosk, or even clocking in and out from an app on their phone, all of which are ways that we can help and streamline that into the payroll and then pay your employees and have that integrate back into Sage and into your accounting software. And then just a few other things too, benefits administration. So, having your employees get help picking what plan is best for them can be really tough. And most of the time people just kind of ask their friend and say, this is what I'm gonna, pick. If that's what you picked, I guess that's best. But every family is different. So we offer that decision support. And then of course the ACA reporting we can handle for you. Performance we mentioned, and then the big thing, everyone's talking about AI and data and analytics right now. So we'll showcase today some of our data and analytics and how we can give you some information back in your own hands compared to your own organization, while also comparing yourself to other organizations that are similar to you. So with that, I'm going to have Michael actually show what this actually looks like.
Okay. So we'll start in the Sage Intacct payroll system powered by ADP, and we're looking at the portal page or the landing page for this site. This is something that we can customize and make sure that we're highlighting the different pieces of our organization and the culture that we have. A lot of our clients will utilize some of these tiles for an employee spotlight or employee of the month, or making sure that employees are aware of things that are coming up within the organization, so company news. Or like many companies are right now in that benefit election process, we want to prioritize that tile and put it at the top of the page so that our employees know this is something that's coming up in a few days and we want to prioritize this. Other things that we're able to do on the portal here is show our time off balances. So we take your accruals into place and make sure that if an employee is looking out a few months, that they can see how many vacation hours they will have. We can also include single sign-on as well as QR code scanners and different icons to link both internally and outside of our system as well. All of this is paired nicely with the mobile app. And this is where employees can get employee self-service. They can clock in and out or allocate different times to projects or grants. I can view my pay statements directly from one space, the same space where I'm clocking in and out. And we also will call out any type of differences. So if I see that my paycheck is $50 less than it was last pay period, we'll call out why that is. Maybe there was a wage garnishment, or I increased my 401k or my HSA giving. With all of this, we also can open up different workflows. So if I wanted to change my direct deposit information or my tax withholding data, we can set up a workflow that's notifying someone within payroll that a change has been made. We can take that a step further and make it an approval. So we can have an approval flow set up. So maybe I change my address and that could have a tax implication. So we want to make sure that someone's aware of that change before it's part of the employee's profile. On the other side of that, if I change my direct deposit information, that may not have any impact to payroll. So we could remove the approval process for that. We wanted to start the demonstration off with an understanding of how we're able to handle allocations, and then we'll move into some of the HR findings at the end. First, I want to point out that if we have automatic labor allocation where we have a stagnant cost center that the employee's time always goes to, or it doesn't change more than a few times a year, within the system, we can set the proper allocations. In this example, we're showing an 80-20 split between two different cost centers. And the home cost center could be a department. You know, I split my time between these two departments or between these two different grants for the entire year. We don't have a limit. The percentage just needs to add up to 100, so we can have a 20-way split depending on the complexity of the organization. Now, if we have something that does change fairly often, we can lean into the time and attendance system. And so we offer the power of choice with collection options here. Our employees can clock either using the mobile app, physical time clocks. We also have kiosks that can be set up on an iPad or Android device, and then PC clocking, of course. With all of these different clocking options, it doesn't matter where the time is coming from, it's all flowing into the same platform. So as a manager, when I log in, I'm able to go to my team dashboard and I can see, you know, team insights. I have one employee that's been punching in late more than the rest of the team. Now, if that has an impact to other team members and it's causing the organization to work more hours of overtime, we just want to call it out so that the manager is able to take action. We'll also call out missed punches or employees clocking out late. Again, just to make sure that the manager is aware of some of the things that are going on the team. Down below, we use exception-based clocking to make sure that we're aware of any outliers. So it looks like we have a few employees that have missed punches. We also have shifts to review. So maybe someone worked outside of a 10-hour time frame or whatever exceptions that we've set up on the back end of the system. When I click to fix a punch, I can see that the employee was scheduled to work till 4 p.m. And if I know that Noah did clock out or was supposed to clock out at 4 p.m., we can enter that time and click save. If not, I have the ability to call that employee or give them a text or send them an email directly through the portal here. Each employee comes with their own time card, and we can set up different approvals so the employee can first approve their time before it's going to the manager and then finally flowing into payroll. This shows an example of how the employee's time will look. And so I have my department, project, and task. We also have a column for work order, but we can change this depending on the organizational setup. So this could read grant and task, work order. So we can make sure that we are keeping the columns and the headers that the organization can use. In addition to that, if we wanted employees to enter straight hours, we could remove the in and out punches and have them enter time after the fact. So a lot of different variations that we see, again, depending on that organizational setup. Now, once we've collected the time and I've had my employee enter in the different hours that they've worked on different jobs or projects, that can add multiple different time slots per day if we have variable hours. We can then pull that information into the payroll engine. In Sage Intacct Payroll powered by ADP, we can host multiple different company codes or FEINs within the same database. So if we want to, we can do cross-company reporting and have everything in a single database. We'll also call out things to do. So an overdue payroll, or maybe we're importing time from a third-party timekeeping system and we're showing pay data for an employee that we recently terminated. We're calling out any outliers to make sure that when you process payroll, that we have everything buttoned up and we're ready to move forward. We'll take a look at one of our payroll worksheets. This payroll is due today. I can see my hours and earnings. I am able to add a worksheet where I can manually key that time data. We can pull in the time information from the Sage Intacct Payroll timekeeping engine. I also can import a file or API write information into payroll. So a lot of different options of how we're getting that time collection data into the system. Once it's in, I simply click on the payroll worksheet, and this is going to show me my hours and earnings and each different employee that we're paying on this payroll. So here on the worksheet, we can see that we have multiple different line items for a single employee, Tony. And this temporary cost number is showing us the job, task, and project that the employee worked on, as well as how many hours they worked on that specific labor sequence or dimensions. All of this information can then be read and parsed out accordingly on the back end in the general ledger. We'll show what that transition looks like. Each employee also has their own pay profile, and this is telling that practitioner or the system this is the employee's regular rate of pay, any deduction codes that they have set up for things like 401k, wage garnishments, and health benefits, our direct deposit information and tax withholding data for federal, state, and local, as well as our accumulators and those time off accruals. Going back to the worksheet and I confirm everything looks correct, we can then click Done and calculate the payroll. When I calculate the payroll, it's taking me to a screen that allows me to compare a prior pay versus a current pay and see if there are any large variances. If there are, we can quickly identify them by viewing more information and make sure that it's something that we're aware of. So we'll turn this on and we can see our current payroll is about double the prior pay in our demo system. This looks to be because of the hours that were worked. And so I can view that data detail to take a deeper dive into the information. I can also pull the employee level changes or detail to understand more about what's going on. Now, once I approve that payroll, we're then doing all of the money movement on your behalf. There are a ton of tasks associated with processing payroll in-house, new hire reporting, printing our W-2s and pay statements. When we partner with Sage Intacct Payroll powered by ADP, we're taking everything in gray off of your plate. And so the things that we need to be worried about are getting that time information into payroll, processing those new hires, terminations, and changes, and then if necessary, doing voids or adjustments after the fact. Again, we're doing that new hire reporting and even transferring information post-payroll over to your general ledger. What that looks like when I go into our reporting dashboard. So we've processed that payroll. I can go into the reporting dashboard here. We have over 174 standardized reports, ranging anywhere from the EEO report and OSHA 300 to time off balance information, as well as talent reporting. So just one repository for everything relating to reporting. The GL interface allows us to take that data. So during implementation, we map your chart of accounts, how you're doing your employee groupings, your debits and credits, and then you will log into the system and create that general ledger file. We'll select the payroll that we just ran, and we'll create that file. And once we click transmit, we'll receive an email in about 10 minutes that lets us know that the information has been pushed successfully to Sage Financials. From there, we can log into Sage Financials and view that journal entry transaction. And in this example, we're showing the split by location and department, but we also, again, can map depending on the groupings that you're utilizing today. So we want to back up and talk about how we're getting folks into the system. And so, from the main landing page here, we can click on our HR template, and we can add employee information to the system, either using the Sage Intacct payroll system for recruiting or a third party. We can feed this automated data into the system, or we can manually key. But we're looking at Frank Smith as a new hire. Can enter all of the tax filing information. Our system is smart enough to pick up lived in, worked in scenarios. And then again, moving into the Sage financial system and clicking on employees, we can see that information updates in real time. So I can click last name and search for Frank Smith. And we can see that information has been sent over to Sage Intacct. Now from there, we can onboard an employee. So we can walk them through this onboarding process. We can include different cultural aspects of the organization. And this is proven to impact our retention. If we can align the employee to the mission and vision of the organization and they experience good onboarding, they're 70% more likely to stay with us beyond 3 years. So making sure that we're putting in those plugs of culture, and also our HR payroll favorite, taking care of all the tasks that are typically we're sitting down at a desk and filling out the Form I-9 or our tax withholding information. This is something that we can send out to the employee before they start, and this way on day one, we can get them acclimated with the location, introduce them to their team, and it makes for a better first day. From there, the information will flow into the payroll engine, and we are able to pull in custom reports. We have a patented tool called the Field Grabber tool, and this allows us to pull that information in. Once we're acclimated with the system, we know where everything is. We can simply go to that page and say, I need to pull first and last name. I need a tax ID number. Maybe we go over to our statutory compliance information and pull in some EEO data. The system will also let you know a similar report has been run in the past. If not, I can continue to go into recruiting or go into payroll and pull in those different fields. In addition to the custom reporting, we also have analytics built directly into the system. So if we wanted to take a look at our own data or benchmark ourselves against others, our analytic tool allows us to do this. First, we will be able to see this information on mobile. So if there are any outliers within the organization that we need to be aware of, we can call them out on a mobile device. So I can say, compared to last year, your overtime has spiked into this year, or this specific location is experiencing a higher turnover rate than the rest of your organization. So just making sure that we're aware of what's going on and that we can quickly address it. I'll pause there. Are there any questions? I know we have 5 minutes. I wanted to see if any information has come in.
All right, if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and use chat to submit those. Right now, we don't have any showing.
Okay. I can go into, while we're waiting for those questions, ADP also can help process benefits on your behalf. So running through a tool where we're just selecting those benefits, and we also partner that with our decision support tool. So making recommendations based on the employee's information and what they've entered into the system, so that we can provide a suggestion.
Any questions, guys? I know we had kind of a short period of time there, but we wanted to try to get it all in. So thank you for that, yeah. Michael. I know that was really great. I don't know if you wanted to show this part still.
Yeah, other things about the benchmarking data, ADP does pay 1 in 5 Americans, so Sage Intacct Payroll is utilizing that same data to do things like cost analysis or benchmarking our organization from a compensation standpoint against that data set. And so we're looking at roughly 1 million organizations, almost 40 million employees across the US that we pay. And so we can enter in things like job titles and the industry that we're working in. And because we refresh this information on a monthly basis, we're not looking at 12-month-old survey data. We're looking at data that is close to real time, and we can see those different market trends and how the market's responding to those outside trends. One of the examples of that is when we look at compensation. The bonus structure for our folks in healthcare took a spike in 2020 because we were trying to signal to stay-at-home moms and dads, hey, come back to the healthcare workforce, we need you, or some of the folks that have retired, we're trying to pull in those folks. And so as a result, we saw a huge spike in bonuses during that time period. And without having that refresh rate of a month, we kind of lose out on some of that insight. The same benchmarking data also applies to things like turnover and overtime. So we're able to see how different folks in our industry and of our same employee size are faring with some of the things that are happening in the US.
Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of the clients that I'm working with that might be moving into a different state. Company I'm working with is franchising, so it's helpful to see what the competitive going rate is for certain roles in whatever areas you're in or whatever areas you might be thinking about expanding into. So I think we have like maybe 10 more minutes left. Any questions at this time?
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay.
I did want to mention too that in addition to hosting those different HR data points, we can host license and certification information as well as the documents themselves. So we have an unlimited document repository here. We can make sure that we're setting up different things so that only certain folks within the organization have access to certain folders. We want to make sure that we're locking down that security internally. And so confidential medical here, maybe we only open up 1 or 2 folks within the organization to have access to that folder. But otherwise, we support fillable forms as well as e-signatures powered by Adobe Sign directly embedded into the technology. And so I can fill out those forms through onboarding. We can send them out after onboarding and the tenure with the employee throughout the organization. And then we can request that the employee fill those forms or multiple signatures on the same form, again, all embedded within that platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
Christy, Michael, thank you again for joining us here. For those that have, sat through this and looked at it, it's a very, very robust world-class system. I mean, they barely touched on the tip of the iceberg. Michael did a great job presenting that. And really, the other aspect of it is the ongoing support that ADP offers and their compliance component. So, like Christy kind of mentioned early on, getting up to speed on a new payroll HR system isn't always a simple undertaking, but they make it as straightforward as possible to get you up there. They have a dedicated team that works with us here at DWD, and we've assisted customers making that transition. But if you're truly looking for a modern day, world-class HR payroll system that's seamless with Sage Intacct, this is really a great option and opportunity to consider. So thank you so much for both of you joining us here this afternoon.
Absolutely.
With that, again, feel free to submit questions as they trickle in here. We'll get those answered, and we're capturing those as we go through. Thank you, Christy, for putting on your contact information there. If there's anybody that has questions, your DWD consultant that you work with here, whether it's Luke or Nathan or Cassie or Brad or myself, we're all able to field those questions. And we can get them over to Christy if there's something that we need further assistance with, or Michael as well. But always a great resource for our group here. So again, thank you so much. The next group that we have kind of lined up here this afternoon is VersaPay, and I believe Jamie is joining here on the webinar, so I'll do an introduction of that and we'll kind of get the screens oriented over. But first, a little bit about VersaPay. They're a great fit for customers that are really looking to streamline their AR processes. We've assisted customers that are looking to accept credit cards and electronic payments, and even offer a customer portal. And it has a direct integration with Sage Intacct and is quite intuitive. And one of the things I like most about VersaPay is that the invoice layouts that you use in Intacct will copy over directly into the customer portal. So if you have certain formatting and you want your logo and that whole bit, everything is cleaned up just the way you like to present it to a customer. It's available on there. They also have email notifications for invoices, and then you can store credit card information directly within Sage Intacct and process it through them. So thank you so much, VersaPay, for joining us. And Jamie, if you're able to come online, let's just make sure that you're able to kind of do a sound check and share your screen.
Of course, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie. I'm the AE here at VersaPay. Naomi's actually with me. She's our partner channel manager, and she's going to present first, and then from there, we'll transition into the demo.
Thank you. Sound loud and clear. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Awesome. So can you guys hear me okay?
We do. Thank you.
Okay, good. This is Naomi Marty. I'm with VersaPay. So nice to meet all of you. Thanks so much for having us. Super excited to share with you. We're going to talk about 3 ways you can get paid faster using Sage Intacct. So let's go ahead. You guys can see my screen okay, right? So let's move on. All right, so VersaPay is now a Sage recommended solution. We've been a Sage Intacct partner for more than 15 years and on the marketplace since 2009. In fact, not sure if you guys knew this, but VersaPay was one of the first to have a solution listed on the Sage Intacct marketplace. So that's kind of exciting, right? We have 2 different listings in the marketplace. One is for our collaborative AR automation solution, and the other is for the VersaPay payments for Sage Intacct. We do have hundreds of joint customers together. And then we have Jamie here on, as well as she had kind of introduced herself. She'll be helping me facilitate the demo here as we go throughout today's session. So let's go ahead and dive in. What we're going to talk about today is we'll talk a little bit about, hey, who is VersaPay? For those of you who might not know who we are, we're going to talk about some of those challenges that we're seeing in accounts receivable. Of course, we are going to talk about those 3 ways, right? We can get paid faster using Sage Intacct. Jamie's going to show us a demo. I'm going to highlight a really cool case study. And if there's any questions along the way, please submit them via that chat, and then we'll try to address them here at the end. All right, so introducing the first collaborative AR network. We are the only solution designed to really solve that AR disconnect. And we were built to work seamlessly with Sage Intacct. So the VersaPay Collaborative AR Network is really a single integrated platform, and it connects your AR departments with their customers over the cloud, which would then help resolve most of those issues that hold up those payments. Plus, of course, it's going to automate the full AR automation as well, like the AR processes, and automate that. And it works kind of behind the scenes within the AR department. Our VersaPay payments for Sage allows you to be able to accept credit cards or ACH right from within Sage. With that, you also have the electronic invoice delivery with our Pay Now links. And then we also have our customer portal, which creates that self-service for your clients, customers. And then from there, you can really automate with that collaborative AR, which has that full collaboration and that full collection process. And then our cash application solution. So this is where, so for those customers, maybe you're receiving payments through, maybe you're receiving a ton of checks, or the CSV file through your bank, we're going to be able to take those payments and apply them to those invoices, and that's through our machine learning and AI cash application tool. About some of those challenges that we are seeing in the accounts receivable processes, and I'm going to start with this illustration because it's going to give us a great look at maybe what that typical AR journey might look like. So for those of you who maybe handle your AR directly, I want you to think about your day-to-day processes, right? And what does that look like for you? You're probably creating like those billing statements, right? And from there, maybe there's some type of a credit review or a hold that has to get converted to an invoice. And then that invoice has to be delivered to the customer. So maybe that invoice is lost in the mail. It's got an incorrect amount. They didn't receive maybe an item on that invoice, or just the amount is incorrect. Once that customer finally gets the invoice, then you're going to have to collect on that payment. And that can be done whether it's credit card, ACH, check. And then once it gets collected, you have to then, that payment has to settle, and it would need to be applied to the invoice to indicate that that invoice was paid. So when you think of this, right, it's easy to talk about, but it takes time, it takes resources, and it can create either a good or a bad experience for your customers. Now, let's highlight some of those challenges that we just pointed out on that AR journey, and also talk about how we can solve them with VersaPay. So if you're having, if you have a lot of manual tasks, maybe it's the invoicing, maybe it's payments, collections, reconciliation, data entry, we are going to make it easier. We have over an 80%, I think it's actually 81% adoption rate, which is the highest in the industry, and we can reduce your AR work by 50%. Maybe, so I know what we also see often is maybe there's multiple systems that you're using to process payments, and there's lack of communication between these systems. Or maybe you're just not giving your customers the ability, like you're limiting their ability to make payments easy. So you're not giving them enough options, which could in turn delay payments, right? And create a bad customer experience. So VersaPay is going to take all of that away. We're going to make it easy to pay, reduce that manual AR work, and we're going to get you paid faster. So talking about those 3 ways to get paid faster, let's talk about accelerating that cash flow. And that can really be done by sending those electronic invoices, right? Hopefully you're not sending them through the mail, right? And you're having to pay for postage, all of that fun stuff. So with the electronic invoices, that has what we call our Pay Now links. These are tokenized and encrypted, fully secure, PCI compliant, and it really provides an easy way for you to deliver the invoices, but also a really fast way to get paid. So which in turn is going to get you paid faster. All right, and then number 2, improve your customer experience. So we all know what it's like to have bad customer service, right? That customer experience is really crucial nowadays. And it seems like a lot of companies lack that. I don't know about you, but that's been my experience. So I think it's super important. So give that customer experience, give them that good experience. And that can be done by offering your clients the ability to offer their customers that 24/7 self-service customer portal. So they're going to be able to pay invoices. They can view all of the invoice history. They're going to be able to sign up for auto pay, save their payments maybe for like a future use. So providing them with more payment options is going to make it easier for them to pay you, which is going to create a great experience and therefore a happy customer. And then number 3, empowering that collaboration. So VersaPay delivers a powerful yet easy to use tool. And with our collaborative AR, you're going to be able to offer both, not just the customer portal, but also you have that supplier portal as well. So you can automate those collections where you can have access to the same information to quickly resolve disputes. There's also really cool, there's ways to set up like smart workflows. So you can automate collections to derive like a certain desired payment behavior. So depending upon what your goals are, there's certain workflows that can kind of drive that behavior. So that's pretty neat. And then you're going to be able to make those informed decisions with that real-time dashboard. There's actionable insights. Also, yeah, so you're really going to create that collaboration, making it easier to collaborate and resolve all of those disputes and get paid faster. So with that, it's also the intelligent collections. So you're going to be able to see like the days of sales outstanding. So that's the DSO. You're going to automate the invoice status tracking. So you're going to be able to see, hey, did they get that invoice? Create that customized collection. So you can maybe there's certain bad customers, or I shouldn't say bad, but maybe there's certain customers that just don't pay timely and they're always delinquent. So you can specify certain collection processes for those customers. Maybe you want to send them a reminder, right? So they don't become delinquent. So there's ways that you can really customize and work and set up different workflows and for each of your individual customers. So also you can segment them using different tags that might be suited to different business needs. All right, I am going to hand this over to Jamie, and she's going to give us a demo and show us what it looks like.
All right, can you see my Intacct screen okay?
Yep.
Okay,
We do
awesome.
see it. Thank you.
Awesome. So this, of course, is Sage Intacct, right? And that's because, as Naomi mentioned, everything is fully integrated into the Intacct space. So you don't have to open up, another dashboard, another website to actually configure and utilize VersaPay. It'll all be done under order entry, accounts receivable, or even contracts module if that's what you're using here. Now, our rule of thumb is there has to be an invoice that is posted in Sage first for VersaPay to then come into play. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of my open invoices here. And down at the bottom is where VersaPay comes in, right? So you'll see these two ribbons at the bottom of this screen here. The first one is a process payment link, and that would open up what we call our virtual terminal window. And that's exactly what it sounds like, the terminal that you can use virtually. And this is for that common example that maybe someone needs to call in, and then you and your staff would need to key in that credit card information as they are providing it for you. VersaPay does take two types of payment, and that's credit card or ACH. So if they wanted to provide ACH information, this would just allow your customers to now enter in routing and account number here. Now, if you wanted the customer to maybe store the account to use at a later date, go ahead and do so. And again, as Naomi mentioned, we are both SOC 2 Type 2 and PCI compliant. So we'll handle that security for you on our end. What'll happen is once you type in this card information, it'll store into our payment gateway or our secured wallet, and it will automatically encrypt it, tokenize it. So once it does sync back into Sage Intacct, all you would be able to see on your end would be the last 4 digits of that card number, as you can see here. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close this out and move toward more automated, solution. And that's by sending an electronic invoice now. So we're putting that invoice control with the customer instead of you and your staff. So by clicking on Send Electronic Invoice, you can go ahead and add a new contact information, maybe select one that has been previously stored here, and then click on Submit. Now, this is more of a manual process of you initiating that electronic invoice, but what VersaPay can do is also give you the option to automatically send out those emails, on your behalf once those invoices are posted. So I'll close this out. And what your customers then would be able to see would be an email that looks similar to this here. So this is our standard email template. We just make sure of 2 things. The first is that there is an invoice PDF attached. And now the invoice PDF that's attached is downloaded from Sage Intacct. So whatever data you put in there, we just make visible for your customers to view. I'll close this out, and then I'll go ahead and click on the Pay Now link. As your customer, if they click on the Pay Now link, will be redirected to what we call our payment portal link. And this will act as an express user. And what I mean by that is think of that as checking out as a guest if you're shopping online, right? No login or password that is needed. More of a one-time payment type of deal here where your customers can view invoice detail, balance due, and then type in either credit card or even ACH information. Now, if you have a customer that says, you know what, I'm going to put in my information, but this is going to be the same exact payment info that I'll be using for all of my future invoices. Down below, we can go ahead and check this off to now consent to have the payment information stored for future transactions and then click on Pay. Once they do check that and click on Pay, this would automatically store in their customer portal if you have that set up and in their Intacct customer account. So once that payment has been completed, what happens is whenever the customer does click on Pay, everything would come over as a fully applied posted payment. And as part of VersaPay's reconciliation offering, all of the payments that are made online back in Intacct will create the cash receipts journal for you. So essentially, all of those posted payments would ultimately close out the invoice automatically, right? And that's when they would receive this email receipt. Now I mentioned the customer portal. In order for your customers to save some time here, we do have that customer portal where they'll be able to log into, view a little bit more information about their account there. And if they're not set up yet, they can go ahead and set themselves up by adding in this password here. Now, say for example, you have a customer that was already set up. What we can do is offer this customer portal link, and the difference is this is now more so of a general link that you can add in your websites, maybe in your own email templates, right? But essentially what will happen is if your customers log into the portal, they'll be able to now view a full list of all of their open and outstanding invoices to make a payment for a couple of them, right? Or maybe just that one there, and then click on Pay. Now again, the difference is they can now use stored payment methods. And we can go ahead and click on one of these here, and then Pay Now, Pay on due date, or even Pay on specified date. Now for those of you that do allow short payment, right? If a customer attempts to short pay or partially pay an invoice, VersaPay does require that they have to leave a note. Maybe they're paying with, this is just first month payment. This note then syncs back into Sage Intacct under the invoice detail. That way you and your staff would have more information about what's going on, and again, more transparency there. And then we'll go ahead and click on Continue here. Now to close this loop, just to note, VersaPay does offer surcharges if that is something that you would want. Maybe you want to send over the processing statement or the processing fees to the customers. You can go ahead and do so here, right? This is only applicable to credit cards, not to ACH. Now, if your customer did complete the payment, you go ahead and click on this Payments tab to view a full list of all of those status reports, right, of the attempted paid invoices. Here up top, we can go ahead and click on Export to export this as an Excel sheet. That way they can share that internally without having multiple people log into the portal just for this feature. And then the source being VersaPay simply means that this invoice was paid for using VersaPay solutions. If it does say source ERP being Sage Intacct, that just means that you had used native Intacct functionality to mark it as paid. Common example of this is if someone sent in a paper check, right? Here we have sales orders. If you wanted to maybe request a deposit from a customers, we are able to do that and offer that as well. This would get synced over to the portal for your customers to make that deposit. And then lastly, we do have Activities tab, and this would just offer your customers a little bit more information of what's going on with that invoice. Maybe if we had left a note here, that note would sync back for them to track. Any additional attachments would also be listed in here for your customers. Another important feature is this Auto Pay tab. Now this Auto Pay tab would allow your customers now to add and remove as much payment information as they would want to. Again, credit card and ACH is accepted. If I click on New up top here, this is where your customers can click on maybe this credit card to now be automatically debited from. And what VersaPay will do is, based on the due date that you set on those invoices, is what will trigger that auto charge, right? So once we get that payment, we'll send over an automated email receipt and vice versa. Maybe if the card is expired, we'll go ahead and send over a decline template there. Now going back into Sage Intacct, I wanted to show you one of our newest features, and that's the email tracking feature. Now, the email tracking feature, again, would benefit you because this would allow more information, more transparency in terms of what exactly is happening to your customer's activity. So if I click on view, you'll see date and timestamps of the status report. So when was the invoice created? When was it sent out? Was it delivered or not? And how many times and when did the customer actually open up that email? And even further, right, how many times or did the customer even click on any of the pay links that were provided for them? So again, VersaPay does work on making everything, as automated as possible, everything all embedded into your Intacct space. We try to be transparent, as we can and offer you all that information so that you are also keeping track of your customers with ease and getting paid a little bit faster than you might currently be doing. So that that concludes everything that I wanted to show in today's demo, starting off with that virtual terminal, the click to pay links via email notifications, and that customer portal. Any questions about this here? No? All right, if that's the case, Naomi, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Jamie. All right, so I'm going to share, I know we have a few more minutes here. I'm going to share one of our customer success stories with you. So this customer here that I'm showing, it's Boston Properties. They are a real estate company. And I'm going to just kind of read to you exactly what Jeff, their VP of Finance, had stated. So he states, we have $1 million tenants. And before, if that $1 million tenant was 2 days behind, we were spending a lot of time and effort trying to understand the reasons why. Now VersaPay is allowing us to ping these customers directly and start a conversation over the cloud. So I'm going to highlight a little bit about that. So prior to implementing VersaPay, they were mailing paper statements, and they were doing that. There was 2,200 statements they were sending out monthly at 55 cents a piece. Of course, that's costly, right? They also had 2 different collectors that were manually collecting and chasing those payments. And then it took 4 to 5 months for operations to resolve any escalated or disputed items related to payment issues. So once they implemented VersaPay, they were no longer mailing those paper statements. Instead, they were delivering them electronically. And with that, of course, they were able to cut down the costs. So it wasn't costing them anything to deliver those statements. They were also able to get a 98% adoption rate. And that's huge. That's above the standard. Anything over 80% is really great. So they blew that number away. And then if there was an escalation, they were able to resolve that within 1 to 3 months. So they were able to, this is just a really good example, they were able to get paid faster, create a really great customer experience for their tenants as well. Now, a couple highlights here in regards to some business outcomes that I'm going to talk about. So Boston Properties, like we said, 98% adoption rate. Regency centers, they were getting a ton of phone calls. They were able to drop their manual work or reduce it by 50%. And then Shop One, they reduced their at-risk receivables by 33%. I'm not going to really talk too much about this. This is our feature matrix. It shows, hey, with each of our buckets, you've got the VersaPay payments for Sage Intacct, which includes the Pay Now links. You can add that customer portal, and it's going to show you everything, all the features that go with that. And then here's our pricing. It starts out at $200 a month. You can add that portal for only additional $100. And then the collaborative AR is $1,500 a month starting out. And then the cash application solution, that can be as an add-on, or it can be a standalone as well. So if we connect all the dots, right, the good news is now there's a way we can achieve all of the benefits. So you can accelerate cash flow, improve your customer experience, and empower collaboration. So thank you all for joining. If there's any questions, please submit them via the chat, or if there's questions that maybe you want to, that you can't think of right now and you think of here after the session, please reach out and we'd be happy to help. Well, thank you guys all for your time. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over.
Yeah. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Jamie, for that presentation and hopping on here. Great information and really like your product and the seamlessness that it has with Sage Intacct. So for everybody on the webinar and for our user group, we'll just kind of conclude here. Again, you will receive the presentation, the slide decks from today and earlier. Those have already been emailed. Any follow-up questions that we haven't addressed, whether it was from the Sage Intacct material, Martis, the payroll module, or VersaPay, we have captured those, or if you're still submitting them, we can field those after the call and we'll address them directly. And then the last two items, kind of housekeeping here, is for those that indicated or need CPE credit, you can email Leah on our team here. She sends out the communications, or you can reach out to us directly if you don't have that contact information, and you can receive credit for this afternoon. And then lastly, there is a survey as soon as this webinar concludes. It only takes about 2 minutes to complete, but we encourage that feedback. Helps us prepare for future user group meetings, the content, the partners that we incorporate, and also you are eligible for the gift card. So I encourage you to do that as well. So thank you for everybody's time this afternoon. We're actually just a few minutes early, which everybody enjoys a few minutes back in their day. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for Luke, Nathan, Cassie, Brad, Sherry for participating and presenting material this afternoon, and all of the marketplace partners as well. So with that, everyone have a great day. Thank you.